I'm going to start us off like we love to start off our member meetings with the reading of the mission statement. It's always good to be reminded why we gather. WiVLA's mission is to provide an inspiring forum for women to explore and advance their creative development, to promote their work in the marketplace, and to infuse the community with their spirit of cooperation and invention. And I think we're doing that really well tonight with this panel that's been put together. I'm excited about it. But before we get to that, we're going to do board member announcements. And all of a sudden I have a tickle in my throat. So perfect timing. I'm pitching it over to you, Melissa, for membership.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Melissa, membership chair this year. And lots of exciting things going on. We were just talking about the RISE reception that starts Thursday. We've got great workshops coming up, lots of opportunities to get together. So make sure and check out WiVLA.org to see the latest, greatest on the calendar. And I also just want to remind you that calendar can also be used for you to announce events, shows, happenings that you're hosting, that you're a part of. So again, we can support you and know what's going on. So feel free to use that. And I don't know if I see any new members on, but I do see some faces that I don't recognize. And you may be members forever and ever and ever, but I haven't had a chance to meet you yet. So I see Montree that I don't know, and Jerry that I don't know. I haven't met Varsha, all sorts of fun people. So, unmute yourself, say hey if you're a guest, if you're new, or if it's just been a while since you've been on a call.
Hi, I'm Montree, and I am a guest of Donna Durbin. Donna and I had a conversation today, and she said, well, are you familiar with WiVLA? You should check them out. They have such and such and such going on today. They have and she told me about it, and she sent me the Zoom link. I don't know if it was private or not, but she sent it to me anyway.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yes. So I am new to the Houston area. I have a marketing communications public relations firm. However, I am a writer. So that was what sparked the conversation about WiVLA, because I do write. As a matter of fact, I just submitted one of my pieces to the Washington Post, and they quickly rejected me, but that's okay. There are other places that I can send it. I mean, they said, well, we'll let you know in 5 days, but they let me know in like an hour or two.
Well, hey, you got to keep trying, right? I love it. Well, we are very happy that you're on the call with us tonight. It's great meeting you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Anybody else want to do a shout out if you're new, a guest, just haven't been on a call for a while? Hey, Jerry.
Hi, it's Darlene. I'm a guest.
Well, hey, Darlene. Very nice to have you on the call.
Thank you. I recently entered one of your writing contests. I'm a writer, published writer. It's nice to be here.
Perfect. Well, we're excited that you're here and always happy to have new writers jump on the call. I think this is going to be a great program for all of us that write. So yeah, good timing, Darlene.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Jerry, I think I saw your hand up.
Yes, I'm Jerry Moore, and I mostly live in Houston, but I spend the summers in Minneapolis. So I'm sitting in Minneapolis where we're about to get a terrific thunderstorm. So I'm not sure whether I'll be able to last or not. But I see some familiar faces. I'm a guest at Kathi Crawford's, and it's good to meet you all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Awesome. Anybody else?
Oh, I'm Gail Dentler. I'm new to you guys. I cannot remember the name of the lady who invited me. She saw me out at the Sugarland Art Festival and was like, you need to join this group and there's no drama. And I went, oh, okay. And then I looked you guys up and I was like, oh, this sounds like a great group, but I'm a visual artist and I do a lot of writing for my website and my artwork. So I do more technical informational writing, I guess.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, very glad that you're here tonight. And anybody else? Well, we've got a full house and this is great. And I want to hand it back to you, Brooke. I'm not sure who's next on the agenda to keep us going, but again, welcome everybody.
Thanks so much, Melissa. I'm gonna speak on behalf of our Vice President, Susan, where she would be giving us a plug for our physical space. We are artists in residence at Right Space at Sabine Studios. And just keep an eye out in the newsletter and in your email inbox about invitations to use that space with us, either to display your art on our walls that are available for a lease in a 2-month term, or for having celebrations for your book projects or readings or things like that. So we have access to Right Space's physical space. Just wanted to make note of that and make you aware to keep an eye out for information to find out how to sign up to use that space. And then I'm going to pitch it over to Rebecca, who is one of our literary co-chairs. Yeah, thanks, Rebecca.
So August, we have 2 different poetry workshops. August 2nd, which is a Saturday, Ekphrastic poetry with Katherine. August 10th, which is a Sunday, haiku and haiga poetry with Denise. And then at the end of the month, we're going to have our book club. There is one change to the book club. It was already, it's been shared in the newsletter. The location is changing. Eloise Nichols shut down, sadly. So it's going to be at Coco's Donuts in the Heights. The time is the same. It's Saturday, August 30th from 3:30 to 5:30. The book is the same. It's the Amalfi Curse, which is really hot right now. So looking forward to all 3 of those things.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. Now I'm pitching it over to Alyssa. I thought I saw her on here. Well, wait, I'll come back.
There she is.
There she is. Alyssa, I know you're just hopping back on, but do you want to give us a programs report? All right. I'm going to take that as a not yet. And I'm looking, I don't see either one of our visual co-chairs on here right now. Probably because this is a really, really busy week for us, because we're about to celebrate our Rise juried show at Sabine Street Studios. On Thursday will be the opening for that. From, what did we say, 6 to 9, with the juror speaking at 6:30. And this is also a great time to invite friends, because we'll also be doing a little meet and greet, inviting people who don't know anything about WiVLA to come check out the show and meet members. So you WiVLA members who will be there, make sure that you get one of our hot off the presses new I'm a WiVLA member name tag that Alyssa has made for us. I have them with me so that they will be on site Thursday. And that way our members can greet people with any information or answer any questions they have about WiVLA. Next is Denise for our newsletter. Denise is connecting to her audio.
We'll give you some background music, Denise. Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, dun,
Can
dun.
you guys hear me?
Yes.
Here you are. Oh, we lost you again, Denise.
Sorry, technical problems up here. Little echo. So the anthology is open for submission from literary folks and also from visual folks for the cover art. Information is available on the website, and it's open until the end of this month. So you still have a couple weeks to get your submissions in. I hope everyone will submit nonfiction, fiction, poetry. We're open to all of that.
Okay, I'm going to recap that a little bit because you were coming in and out. So there's a anthology, the anthology literary competition that we have is going on right now. And Kathi just put information from the website in the chat, so you can link to that to find out the details about that, and also just watch in your inbox for things. The theme is resilience, and there's all kinds of different genres. So no matter if you're a poet, if you write creative nonfiction, flash, all the things, there are places for you in this anthology and for your work to submit. I do want to do a little sound check if you don't mind. Denise, you are using your phone for audio, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. That was clear.
I get an echo. Do you guys hear an echo?
I
Can
don't,
you
we
hear me
don't
at all?
hear, yeah, we can hear you, but we don't hear the echo. That might be from your computer.
Okay, well, as long as you guys don't hear it, I'm fine.
Okay. I just want to make sure we can hear you during our program, because that's key. All right, I'm going to pitch it back over to Alyssa. Alyssa, do you want to say anything about programs?
I'd love to, but I can't at the moment, but encourage everyone to check the calendar, which is constantly getting updated.
Awesome. Thank you. I think we covered most of it with all of the other board members, so we're probably in pretty good shape. So I am going to pitch it back to Denise to get us started for this exciting program on the panel that we have to teach us all kinds of things about getting published. Take it away, Denise.
Thanks. So I'm really excited that we've been able to put together a panel of WiVLA members, and we have Kathi, we have Sandi, Margo, and Nancy are going to be helping us understand their experiences in submitting and getting published in literary magazines, and Margo as well. And then we'll also have the opportunity to have Katherine and Lorette speak to us from the perspective of editors as far as what they're looking for. So I am going to post the questions that I offered our panel members to speak to, so that everyone can kind of see where we're headed, but they also can go wherever they want in the discussion about their experiences. So I'm going to ask Kathi to kick us off and kind of give us a rundown of your experience.
Okay, you just want me to give you a general overview first? I'll just give maybe a history. So I write poetry and creative nonfiction. I've also written flash fiction, mostly, yeah, short, less than 1,000 words, and sometimes even less than 250 words. And I've been submitting since January of 2023. And I got well, before that, but my first acceptance was in January of 2023. And since then, I've had 27 acceptances overall in terms of individual pieces, including my chapbook, which is currently available for pre-order. So I am happy to talk about my journey and excited to share what I've learned with you all this evening.
Yeah, so do you want to go ahead and address some of the questions that are in that, Kathi, about more specifically about the application process?
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to drop in the chat too. As I was answering these questions earlier today to get ready, this is my list of where I look for opportunities. That's my top list of the places that I go to. And as you see, there's quite a few, but I have found that these are the best sources. And I'll just say the Lit Mag News Substack with Becky Touche, I think it's Tuck. But anyway, she has been writing about the Lit Mag community for decades. And so I have learned from her, as well as all of the members of that Substack. If you're going to invest in any Substack, that one is definitely worthwhile. They also do a monthly Lit Mag brag where we're sharing about where we've been accepted. And I learn about where people have been accepted, and I say, oh, well, let me check that out, or let me check this out, you know. And so I've learned of new places that way. So it's just sort of a regular process. I will say the other best practice that I've done is on my calendar once a week, I have an hour set aside for my submittal practice. And some weeks I spend an hour, sometimes 0, and sometimes 6. Okay, so that can vary, but because I have it front of mind, it's much more possible that it's going to happen. So I do recommend that. And then also just in terms of duotrope, do you want me to say a little bit about that? Duotrope and submittable. So I do keep a tracking spreadsheet of my own. You need to have a master spreadsheet essentially, or list that you're tracking, because not every place has every magazine you might be submitting to. But I find Duotrope to me is really useful because any magazine that's listed there, they might have an interview with the editor, so they give you some tips on that. They'll tell you, oh, don't submit here. They're a fledgling magazine. So there's a lot of information out there. And also they have their stats. They say of everybody that belongs to Duotrope who submitted to, this magazine, they get, they have 3% acceptances and, 97% declines. Okay, that's just good information. There's not a big chance of getting accepted, but that doesn't stop you from submitting to them. But it gives you a lot of data. I can track all of my pieces. Everything I've written is in Duotrope. And then I can look and just see where have I submitted, poem A, it'll give me the list of the different literary magazines that I've submitted to, that I've been able to record there. Submittable is less reliable in the sense of data and reliability, but most literary magazines use Submittable for for tracking their submissions. So if you find a magazine that you want to submit to, research it on their website first. And then if you want to submit to it and it takes you to Submittable, that's where you have to, submit all of your information and your piece. So I don't really use it as a source to get things, but I have to use it as a way in which to submit my work. I don't know is that good? You want me to stop there? We have a lot of other folks that can talk.
Question would be, how do you choose which piece that you're going to submit?
Okay.
Are you responding to prompts? Are you taking stuff you've already written?
You bet. That's a big effort right there. I will drop another link into the chat on that, but just off the top, well, are you talking about the pieces or the places or both?
About the pieces, yeah.
Okay. It's kind of both, to be honest with you, but I get something ready through my generative process, and then I have some first readers, people that I know will read my work and give feedback. We just started a writer circle as part of WiVLA. We can create more of those, but we have one working right now, and so we've started giving each other feedback and helping each other with taking a piece from where it's at to the kind of the next level. I found that it's really important that I have people read what I've written and go through an editing process first before I'm ready to submit it. Once I feel it's ready, I'll start submitting. And then sometimes if I've submitted it to 30 places and I'm thinking, well, maybe it's not exactly right, I'll take another look at it. I may change it. The most important thing there is no matter what you submit, I always create a separate document for that. You have to upload your document anyway. So let's say it's to XYZ magazine. It's got 5 poems in it. I just say poetry packet, XYZ magazine. And then I can always go to that folder and I know what I sent in and at what stage in that process. So it is important to kind of have a way in which you can find things, especially when it's like 6 months later and they say yes, we want your poem, and you're like, oh no, which version was that? You can look at that, what you sent in, and at that point you can decide if you want to accept their offer to publish it, or if you've changed it so much or you'd prefer it to go somewhere else, you can decline that request. I've always said yes, but you know. So there's that part of like getting something ready, knowing what you have. And then for poetry, they're asking for 3, 1 to 3 poems or up to 5 poems, in some cases 10 poems. So I also think about how they work together. And I'm setting a packet of 5. I've gotten different advice about this, but maybe a strong poem as the first one and finish on a strong ending, as if when they read through your packet, those are gonna stand out. But the editors can speak to that as to whether that matters at all. But I also think about sort of how they fit together, but then also how do they fit that particular literary magazine? I read the work on that website. I want to know kind of what they tend to publish and whether or not the kind of writing that I'm writing is for them. So.
Thanks so much, Kathy. That was really informative. I appreciate that and all the links that you dropped in the chat for people. That was great. So, Nancy, would you like to go next to kind of share your thoughts about all this? What Kathy did?
I'm having trouble hearing you, Denise. Did you call on me to speak? Okay. All right. Great. I do many of the same things that Kathi does. I'm not a poet. I write mostly nonfiction and a lot of medical nonfiction. And so I have a sort of a different list of places. I track the medical narrative medicine list of publications. But I also keep track of other writers and where they have gotten something published. And if it sounds interesting or I know that I like their work, then I'll look up those journals. The first piece I ever submitted got accepted, and so I was really naive about how that works, because my next piece, I think, took many, many tries to get it out there. I was like, oh, great. And the first contest I ever entered, I won. So I was just totally blown away by the reality of real life once that hit me in the face. But I use many of the same places. I also keep track of quite a few people on Facebook. There's a Facebook binder for memoirists. There's a Facebook binder for nonfiction writers. And those also have some really great places in there. And people who get a book deal will frequently, put in a shout out to their agent or editor. And that's another source of information that I use to sort of plan my submission. So I try to always send to my highest ranked journals first and wait a little while. It annoys me that some journals don't allow simultaneous submissions. But if you really, really, really want to be in that journal, then go for it. I would like to be getting things accepted by newspapers. I wrote something that I submitted to the Houston Chronicle on how to talk to people in grief after the floods in Central Texas. Crickets, absolute crickets. So I would like to get into that. Somebody asked what a Facebook binder is. It's a Facebook group. And I think that you have to answer a couple of questions in order to be accepted into the group, like, do you write memoir? Well, yeah, I write memoir. So you basically get in, and each group has, has some fairly innocuous rules about self-promotion and that sort of thing. But that's where I get a lot of mine. I also go through Poets and Writers Chronicle. Those are great places. And I think the other place that Kathi mentioned was Authors Publish, and they put on some very good lectures and also publish some submission calls. So that's kind of how I plan mine. And I keep a separate spreadsheet. I guess that's a relic of my business school days. I have a spreadsheet that has what I sent, when I sent it, when I heard back from them, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody asked a question about narrative medicine. There are a number of journals that accept narrative medicine pieces. I'm happy to share the one that I have. I think the one that everybody knows about is the Bellevue Literary Review, and they get about 5,000 submissions per edition. So I haven't cracked into that yet. But it certainly is some very good writing, and they also put on some good programs as well. But I'm happy to share that list of narrative medicine journals with anyone. And some of them come and go. There are a few that are like college journals in that they may be student edited, and the same happens with a few narrative medicine journals that they might be run by a group of medical students or residents. So those can be a little slower to respond, especially in the summer months. Other questions?
Yeah, Nancy, how do you decide what piece to submit to which journal?
Basically, it's an idea about if there's a specific subject call. I use that a lot. I've basically quit sending out the essays from a book that I'm putting together because I've published enough of them already. I don't want to put out too many of them. So for a food journal, I sent out a piece about asparagus, and I send some flash pieces if I have just a little short story that I want to tell. So it depends on what the call is for. And for longer pieces, I'm very selective because not a lot of journals will take pieces that are over 3,000 words, and I have some that are approaching 6,000. So you have to be pretty selective in finding a home for those. Long reads will sometimes take them. Fourth genre will take them. There's a few places. The Sun will take them. But you have to really be thoughtful about longer pieces. They take longer to respond, and they're also, just harder to place than something that's, 2,000 to 3,000 words.
Thank you, Kathi or Nancy. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Margo, do you want to jump in and share your experience?
Okay, so I'm going to try not to be too long, but if I go too long, just do this and I'll know to stop. Okay. I started out writing monologues to perform at comedy clubs during open mic night. And I went from there to taking classes with Sandi Stromberg. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made. I don't know, Sandi, you can tell me how many years I was in that class with you. I mean, it was like, what, 5 years?
Oh, no, it was more like 10 or 12.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
You were a cornerstone of the class.
So the great thing there were many great things about Sandi's class. She taught at the Jung Center, but one of the things that she taught us was just write. If you don't have anything to say, just write. And so I interpreted that to mean, and we were writing these short memoir pieces. We wrote some at home, and then every time in class, we would have, I think, 12 minutes to write from a prompt, and then we could go around the room and read them. And so what I would do I would write, I hate this class. I hate this prompt. I have nothing to say. And that was kind of my mantra. So I would just, I had my little typewriter, my laptop, and I would type that. But then eventually words would start coming out. And so I rarely have writer's block anymore. Not that I write great stuff, but I can usually get started because the classes with Sandi. So anyhow, I took that, I took poetry classes, and then I started hanging out with people who write. And, some of my best friends and favorite people are writers. And on this call, as a matter of fact. And I became very interested in journals like the Ekphrastic Review. So I started submitting to the Ekphrastic Review because, like Sandi was there, Varsha was there, John Milcright. So the cool kids were on the Ekphrastic Review. So I thought, I want to be in that one too. And I started taking classes. I took some classes with Lorette. And in one of the classes, Lorette said, and at the time, I was submitting to different journals, and I was taking classes with Kate Wise Orcutt, and so some of her, all of her prompts are so good, and so I was getting published quite a bit. And she would tell me about these offbeat journals. She said, "You need to submit over here," and so back to Lorette. So in one of Lorette's class, and Lorette, I might be misspeaking. If I'm misquoting you, just tell me. But I think you said something like, if you're submitting your work for publication, ask yourself, why do you want to be published? Kind of like, what's your goal in getting your work out there? And I thought about that, and I thought, I'm 76 years old. I have medical problems. Who knows how much time I have left? So I need to be doing things that really excite me and things that I really love. What I really love is performing. And so I'm putting my energies now into making video poems that, can show at film festivals, but also going back to my first love, which is writing monologues and performing. And I'll put a link in the chat, but one of the things you might consider if you write poetry is creating poetry videos or video poems. And I guess maybe a couple of years ago, it wasn't last year, it must have been a couple of years ago, I gave a presentation on using video apps. And I'll put that in the chat as well, if you want to go back and look at that video. But also, if you have friends who are artists or friends who play musical instruments, it's a great way to do collaborations and then submit them to film festivals, especially the ones that specialize in short videos and video poems. And there are a lot out there. And you can also create a YouTube channel. And so that's great. You can read your work, or you can make a video of your work with artwork and music and all those things. So do you have any questions?
Okay. No, that's terrific. Anybody in the audience have a question for Margo?
All righty. Good luck.
Thanks, Margo. Sandi, you're up. You want to share your experience with us?
Sure. I started years ago when my husband and I, not too long after we got married, moved to Europe. And so I didn't have a work permit, but I'd always wanted to write. And I had BA and master's degrees in Russian. So, and I love languages. So Europe gave me a chance to learn lots of languages, but what are you going to do with the rest of your time? You have no children, what have you. And so I started trying to write magazine features. And what I did because this was in the 70s, long before computers. There weren't a lot of outlets for English writing. So I looked around me in the countries I lived in, the cities, what was published in English and what could I write for? So I ended up, when I lived in Geneva, Switzerland, there was a American Women's Club, but only 49% of the women were American. Everyone else, they were from all different countries. And they put out a magazine in English. And I started, and that's where I cut my teeth on magazine feature writing. And I would write something every month for that and grow as a writer. I mean, I look back on some of those pieces and I think they were kind. But so what I did is from there, I would meet editors of other small publications. I always looked around me and said, what is there right here that's close? Because there was no Google, there was no, there was no place that we can go to today like Duotrope or Submittable or what have you. But by the end of the 70s, I got to where I was, no matter where I lived, I managed to carry these publications around with me. I was writing on consignment. They were asking me, and at one point I wrote for Cranes Today, which was the English industry magazine for cranes. And they flew me all over Europe to interview these men who in the crane industry. And that was wonderful because these men would tell me all kinds of wonderful stories. And it made my articles so much more interesting in the magazines. And then I wrote for Construction Europe when the Iron Curtain went down. So I had lots of experiences, but it was really just building my own little warehouse of places I could write. So then when I started writing poetry was actually, I was invited to WiVLA in 1999. And I was invited to tell me the story of my freelance career in Europe. But I had arrived here 7 years before and I couldn't write anything. And so I went and I said, I can't write anything, but this is my story. Well, the women, we used to go to dinner afterwards at Cafe Express on West Grade. And all the women came up to me and said, oh, you were so successful. You were so successful. And I said, oh, but didn't you see, I can't write anymore. And I came home and I told my husband, and he said, I've always told you that. But I heard it. And the next day, the literary co-chair called me, and there were two publications that WiVLA was putting out. The very first anthology, which was called Black and White, and then another little chapbook for the Women's Summit in 1999. There was a Women's Summit here in Houston. And I was invited to write for it because I was executive director of Bridget's Place, which was a place for feminine creativity and spirituality. Anyway, she called me and said, we're putting out these two things. Would you write something for it? And I said, Vivian, I can't write. But my husband was at a class at the Hume Center, and I sat down and I wrote 2 poems. Never before had I written a poem. I sent them to IN and they published them. And that's when I started writing and poetry. So then I was really afraid to call them poems. I called them expressions. And I didn't start submitting till 2004 because I was so awed by the poets here in Houston. There is a huge poetry community. And, but I started sending them out. And the first acceptance I got was to a little folio sheet called Curbside Review. And the Roy Castleberg and Carolyn Adams put that out every month. And it had about maybe 10 or 15 poems in it. But it was just so exciting to in 2004 to get something published. And then I started really looking around. Okay, there was Curbside Review. There was the Houston Poetry Fest. There were Dos Gatos Press had taken over the Texas Poetry Calendar. So once again, I did like I had done in Europe with the magazine feature writing, was looking around what's around me. And I'm still very much an advocate of that. We have Synkroniciti, Katherine McDaniel puts out. It is a wonderful quarterly. It is visually pleasing. It is incredibly accomplished, and it's a delight to appear in it. We have Equinox put out by Kellyanne Ellis and Hot Poet. But the biggest gift to my poetry writing was one of my friends, Margo Davis, in January of 2020, of 19, sorry, yeah, no, 2019, okay? Getting my 19s and 20s mixed up here. Anyway, she told me that there was this thing called the Ekphrastic Review, and that they had these challenges every 2 weeks. And so I immediately went on, and there was a challenge for a Joseph Cornell, one of his shadow boxes. He made these boxes and he would fill them with different things. And this one was filled with little bottles, like pharmacy bottles that had different things inside. And it was like Wednesday and the deadline was Friday. So I just went to work on that poem. And I sent it in by the deadline, which was midnight Friday night. And when I got up on Saturday morning, it had been accepted. For these challenges, there's often somewhere around 15, 18 entries accepted. But hey, I opened it up and there was my poem, you know? And I became addicted. I entered for the next 48 challenges. And there was a challenge every other week. And Lorette was an amazing editor to work with, encouraging, and her whole philosophy was creating a family of writers. And it's poetry, it's flash fiction, it's flash nonfiction, it's microfiction, micro nonfiction. So it's really open. I've even had a couple of essays published and everything in response to a work of art. And out of those 48 entries, I think 35 of them were chosen and posted. And then I started writing other ekphrastic poems on the side and submitting them in the regular submission time. It was such a gift because we went into the pandemic and that gave me something to do. And then as my husband was dying in the summer of 2021, it gave me something to keep writing as I was sitting in the hospital with him. And I carried through and I just kept writing to those challenges. So poetry was a life raft for me. WiVLA was my beginning in poetry. So I collect what's around me, but I also go in, and the Ekphrastic Review is great because there's a new poem every day. What I started doing in about 2020 was reading where all of the people who were accepted, where did they submit? Where did they submit these poems that I like so much? And I started making a list and I started submitting to those places because I knew that those places took the kind of poems that I wrote. So I have a really nice group of publications I send to, and sometimes I then try new places. And when you try new places, you have to be persistent. You know, the first couple of times they may not take you, but then they start to see your name and they start to pay a little more attention. So perseverance is a really important thing. But if you're starting out, I just really say, look around Houston. You have the Bayou Review from U of H downtown, Gulf Coast from U of H main campus. That's its own game. It's graduate students who run that and who are looking for things. We tend to be a little more women of an age, okay? And the way we write our poems and what have you may not be the cutting edge of today's, of some of the poetry coming out of academia. But what I found also that's important, I used to think if you didn't have an MFA, no one would look at you. And that is not true. Your work speaks for you. And I can see Katherine shaking her head. Anyway, so my idea, and I do keep a spreadsheet because I want to know always what's been turned. I do it by publication. What have they seen and what have they turned down? That helps me have a better idea of what they might take the next time. So the Ekphrastic review, you're given prompts because every other week there's a piece of art that goes up. And you may have the most bizarre thought on that piece of art, but you can write about it. And that's such a gift. And it's read. You don't get a response, but a week later you get to look and see if your poem was chosen among the group. Katherine with Synkroniciti always does a theme. And she has a theme right now called Dreams, but I think it closed today. Yeah. So, but anyway, I have my own little house of literary magazines. And the other thing is I'm going to put my email address in the chat, and I am open at any time someone wants to talk about submissions or where or whatever. Feel free to send me an email. I'm more than happy to have a dialogue about that. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Sandi. Really appreciate the explanation of your history and how things evolved for you. That was wonderful to hear. So I'm going to turn it over to our editors now. I'm going to ask Katherine to jump in and just say whatever you would like to say about how you come up with your themes, how you pick folks, and what you would recommend people do and not do.
Hi, thanks, Denise. Well, Synkroniciti has been around. We just turned 6. So we opened in June 2019. And we take flash fiction, short stories, poetry, essays, visual art of all sorts of types. We typically run 3 contests in each issue. One will be in poetry, one will be for the cover, and one will float through the other literary catalog categories. So there's always 3, there's always something. And if it's not what you're liking to do, hold on and it'll change. So, but tonight is our closing for Dreams. It closes at midnight. And the next theme will be patterns. So you might ask, how do we choose our themes? And well, our title of the magazine is Synkroniciti. And that's a Jungian term, which refers to things that happen or things that we see in life that are not related, at least causally, but our mind makes a connection anyway. So I tend to structure things by sort of a dialogue between pieces. So sometimes that makes it tricky to get in because it's not just your piece and your piece being excellent, but it's sort of what else was submitted that sort of connects with it. So there's a lot of things going on. But as far as themes, what happens is whenever I get stuff that I really like, that I can't fit into the issue I'm working on, I look ahead and I start making a list of those things. And I look to see if I see a theme emerging there. So if you submit something generally, if you say, hey, I don't know about your theme, but I just like to give you this, you might start a theme in, 6 months, a year. We're actually 3 or 4 out at this point because we get enough submissions and enough things that are fantastic that I don't want to let them go. So really what comes in determines the future theme, which is really fun.
Yeah.
And that gives me a chance to watch things kind of grow. And there's sort of a relationship between issues too, which is kind of a fun thing. So what are we looking for? Well, as I say, it depends on kind of how things slate in together and how they fit together. But I really enjoy seeing stories that maybe haven't gotten told quite as much. So maybe from a different point of view, maybe a segment of the population that we don't hear from, maybe a situation that is a little taboo at first, and we have to kind of push into it. Or maybe it's something that's just totally ordinary, but you have your own unique way of presenting it. So something that is a little different and a little unique, but still relatable. And one thing, we're always looking, so every issue needs a little lightness and a little humor. And I'll tell you, humor is the most underrepresented category of submission we get. So if you have a funny poem, if you have a poem you think, oh, this isn't that serious, so I shouldn't send it, you absolutely should. Because a lot of times those funny poems will get in a lot quicker than a serious poem, just because we only got 10 funny poems and we got 400, serious things. So, and that goes for short stories and flash too. Be funny, and even art. A sense of humor is always helpful and always helps us have a new way of looking at things, because if you can laugh about it, you can think about it differently. If you're into poetry, what we're looking for in the poetry is, I'm not a big formalist. So if you rhyme a lot, or if you are really strict into sonnet form, that's great. And if you carry it off, I'll love it. But that's not strictly what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is, are you expressing something of you that you have internally? Are you successfully expressing that in your poem? Is it getting something across that I haven't heard before, or that makes me think? I love alliteration. I love assonance. I love sibilance. I love word patterns. And if you have something that's super abstract, so a lot of times as poets, we're writing really far out in our head. And it can be a little tricky for the reader, especially when they only have, a page or 2, maybe 3. It's really tricky for the reader to access where your mind is. And if you're dealing in something really abstract, my suggestion is try inserting a few sensory images into your piece. So if you're talking about a dream you had and it's crazy and whack and out there, talk about the feeling of the chair, or the where you fell asleep to take an accidental nap, or think about the fabric of your mattress top. Just find something that is grounded and that we can all kind of seep into your mind, so that we're not off amongst the abstractville immediately. That helps sometimes to get the juices flowing and on connection. And then if you're writing a longer piece or a flash, if you're writing something that is plot driven, what I would say is show rather than tell most of the time. So if the piece ends up really passive, or you're sort of stepping out of it to look and interpret, that sometimes we get a little pushed out of the moment. So we're not experiencing it with you. So I'm really excited by things that are really first person and you're really in the story. You get us really in there with you. And be careful of, not everyone likes this, but I like ambiguity. And I like as a reader to make my own conclusions. So don't answer all of the questions for the reader. Don't present something that's like, oh, this is how it is. I have all the answers. This is the box. Make sure that there's some room for ambiguity. I enjoy that. That's one thing I really look for. And finally, with art submissions, we do a cover contest. And to win the cover, the art has to be not just eye-catching, and that it could be eye-catching because it's a black and white and it's stunning. It could be eye-catching because there's so many colors there that they just pop off the screen into our eyeballs. I don't care. But what I need is not something that is just eye-catching or beautiful, but something that really bores into what the theme is about. And if you can get more than one angle on the theme in the same cover, that is fantastic. We love that. I love covers that I'm looking at them, 6 months later, and I'm still going, oh, but you could see that there. I didn't see that before. So as much coding of the theme that you can get in as an artist, go for it. That's really what we're looking for. Beautiful is nice and lovely, but it won't get the cover for just being beautiful. It's got to go a little farther. Things to avoid. Okay, always be nice. Always be nice. And when you write your emails, I tell you, it's usually not a woman, but it's usually a male submitter who is really bossy and really like, and it's not going to get you in there. So as women, we need to not ever emulate those things, because sometimes we think we need to do that to get in there. It's not a pleasant experience. And that goes into your writing too. Like when you're writing something, is your story, is your poem, does it poke fun at someone else? Is it snide? Is it a little, I like things that are not from a mean-spirited point of view. And, not homophobic, not transphobic, not misogynistic. You would be amazed the things that sometimes come in. Again, usually men. And you're like, you wrote that, and you know that the journal is women owned, and you wrote that and sent it. So it's amazing what comes in sometimes. But so that's the main thing is be nice and don't psych yourself out. Don't think, oh, they wouldn't like this, because you don't know. We are always I think myself included, we are the worst reviewers of our own work, because we don't know how it speaks outside of our head, because we have so many points of reference with it that we can't tell how it speaks outside of us. So never think, oh, this isn't good enough, or oh, they wouldn't like that. Give it a try. See what we think, and be open when somebody says, hey, I really like this, but have you thought about that? So I several times, especially in the past 2 or 3 years when we've really gotten going, I'll have a piece come in, especially a short story, and it's good, it's really good, but it's not quite right. And so I'll point out a few things and I'll say, please resubmit this. I think, and if I have a theme coming up that I think it'll fit, I say, please submit it here if you want, and I won't charge you to resubmit. Just rewrite it up and see what happens. And I have had pieces that have done that come back and win contests, because they completely, there was a piece, I don't think it was a contest winner, but there was a piece that came in that was really disjointed and really hard to read. And I sent it back and I said, but I liked what he was saying, what I could catch. And I sent it back and I said, I don't know, it ended up in our identity issue. He had submitted it for vulnerable. And I said, I don't know that it's ready yet. Try these things. And he sent it back, and it was one of the strongest pieces in that issue. It was just really, really, really clear. And I was amazed that he said, well, I followed all the things you said. And I said, wow, but it wasn't just that. Like he spiffed it up good. So don't think that it's a zero-sum game and that I have to get it in there and they have to love it right off. If you're willing to play a little tennis, and if you're willing to be persistent, over time, something that didn't make it in initially might make it into a later theme. So that's kind of how I work. And if anybody has a question, let me know.
I
Any
was just going
questions
to
from the
say,
audience?
Katherine, I love the way that you save pieces
Mhm.
for future editions. I mean, that takes a lot of forethought and energy on your part, but I think it's a great idea. And you've corrected a piece that I submitted one time, and it did make it so much better. So I did appreciate that too. So just wanted to let you know. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Margo.
Yay.
Yeah.
I have a question, maybe for Kathi and the other editor. You know, WiVLA puts out anthologies, especially when we do collaborations. And so if you've done a piece for WiVLA, it'll get published in an anthology that has like a circulation of, 50. Is that considered a published piece for the purposes of a magazine or somebody that you want to send it to that says no published pieces?
That would be considered published. Yes.
Okay.
Even if in most cases, even if you have something that you posted on a blog,
Yeah.
even that would be considered published.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Now we do at Synkroniciti, we take things that have been published before, and we also do simultaneous submissions. We're not fussy about those things.
Okay. Good to know. Thanks.
Yeah, I have a comment. I want to thank Katherine. I sent you 3 pieces on the belonging issue, and you said, can I keep the other 2 for future? And one of them was for identity. And I was like, wow, how does she know this will fit in there? But you know what? Thank you. You did. So it was
welcome.
I appreciate your vision. Thank you so much.
That also helps me. It's also insurance for me in case we're low in the future. If we don't get a bunch of submissions for an issue, it goes up and down. So if that gives me, I know that I'll have at least a little nest that's already there. So I don't have to be like. So
Can you tell us a little more, Katherine, about you said your future issues come from your current pool of what is synchronistically, fitting together. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So I especially with poems, because everybody sends 5. And now that we get so much poetry, it's when we first started, I would be like yes, all 5, yes, go 4, yes. But it's very rare for me to do 5 of the same person in one issue anymore. And so that gives me a way of sort of spreading out that work, and also people I like to work with, because that's a part of it. People I enjoy working with, I want them to come back and do more. So it's I've got submissions coming in tonight that I'm getting bing bings. But anyway, it's a matter of just kind of looking ahead and also seeing just seeing what's falling in. And sometimes I'll read the set of the things that I wanted to put in. They're usually stuff that gets cut like a week before I have it fully decided. And I'll read through that set and I'll go, okay, is there anything that's happening between these that actually happens, that actually connects? And so we had some things in identity. We had some things come in that talked about language and that talked about patterns of language. And then we had some artwork that was like quilts that were art quilts and things that were, you know, and I was like, okay, these are patterns. So we can do patterns for that. And that's how patterns was born.
Okay.
And then Audacity is the next one. And we had a lot of courage pieces, and we've had a lot of pieces come. Our current government is creating a lot of interesting writing pieces because there's a lot of rage and anger, and people are writing it up, and I'm getting that in, and I'm like, okay, well, there's enough of this connecting that we need to have some good trouble. And I think Audacity, I actually had a poll for that one because I said, should it be tenacity, Audacity, courage? What are we going to pick? And Audacity won out. I think that one's kind of fun. So that's how it kind of works. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a question in the chat for you, Katherine, just real quick.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how many readers you average per issue?
So we have, it goes up and down a bit, depends on how the issue sells, and it depends on how many artists we have in it, because the artists are part of the readership. So it registers about 60 to 70 subscribers. So that's going out. It depends on what we sell in issues. Sometimes we sell 30 issues. Sometimes we sell 10. Sometimes we sell 45. That jumps around a lot. I figure it's around, and we have about 45 artists. I figure it's around 200 would be the readership. Now it's slowly. When we first started, I had to beg. The first year, it was really hard to get things moving. But the pandemic, we had an uptake with the pandemic, and it's continued to keep going. And I think a lot of the work, it's word of mouth. That's why people are coming back, and people come back and they bring their friends. And if everybody wants to tell us that we have to have the best TikTok and we have to have the best video stuff and all of this, that's nice, but it won't beat word of mouth. You really need to just treat people well and have people tell their friends, hey, this is a good place to be.
Thank you so much, Katherine. That was fantastic. Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Thank you.
All right, Lorette, you're up to take us home. Let us know all about what you're doing.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. And thank you to all the people here who have contributed so much to the review and have become friends, and in Sandi's case has become an editor there. It's just amazing. I feel that WiVLA is kind of a fellow family in Texas, and we're here in Canada, but connected, and that's amazing. Something Sandi said about you don't have to have an MFA. So I'm a very unconventional person, and I like writers to be from all different walks. And it's really important to me to have a true diversity of voices, in that I'm interested in many kinds of perspectives. And in the case of the Ekphrastic Review, that ranges from high school students responding to visual art with poetry to people who are institutionalized in prisons, to MFA and creative writing professors, to everyday people who are writing. For me, it doesn't matter what the pedigree is. It matters how you engage with the visual art and what you say about it, and if it's going to show something different to people. I like things that are interesting, and that can mean many things. It's just a different take. So on that note, Margo also mentioned when I said at submissions workshop, I believe, really think about why you want to publish. Okay, you sometimes see these groups that are all about, get to 100 submissions this month. And that's great, that's fine. And I'm all for this kind of cheerleading. But sometimes some folks might have, 328 poems in the last 10 years. And how many journals do you want to rack up? So my suggestion is instead that you think about who you want to be connected with and where you want to appear, and then spend your time fostering that. So instead of just willy-nilly sending out to everything that crosses your plate, think about how you connect with the people who are there, and maybe spend more time writing on poems, and spend your submitting energy on those places. And there are journals that expect you to have a certain kind of pedigree, but there are also journals that are photocopied and they're very grassroots, and they are kind of punk rock. And then there's places that are for women, and there are places for people who are women of a certain age, let's say. There are thousands of journals out there, and finding ones that you resonate with will make it more meaningful when you are part of that. And some journals do have this idea that if you were published in this journal, don't submit again for the next 10 years. And that's fine, but we're not like that. We actually want to have relationship with our writers. And I mean, we publish every day, and we publish 2 special editions a month that have many pieces, the challenge section that Sandi was talking about. So we publish a lot. And it's still not enough, but I want to publish you, and I publish you again. Not just, okay, you had your turn, next. I want a kind of, I want people to see, oh, here's Kathy's poem again. And I liked it the last time, and I'm paying attention this time. And oh, there's Margo, and I saw her at one of the workshops, and oh, I saw her at this comedy club in Texas as well. So we want to foster this at the Ekphrastic Review. So that's just a kind of word on that. And then the issue that Katherine mentioned about reprints. So we're on the same page here. It's unusual for journals. A very small percentage of them take reprints. And this is a kind of bane of poets and writers, and it's a bane of mine. We publish reprints at the Ekphrastic Review. Margo actually said at one of the workshops that we would listen to a song on the radio over and over. So why wouldn't we want to read a poem in one journal and read it a year later in another? And I don't like the idea that, you had your fun if you had a publication and, 62 people read it, and then that's it forever. I want to give that another day, because, poetry is not something that has a mass readership, but those of us who read and write poetry or, short fiction, whatever it is us, and we love it so much. And we are reading it, but there's this many of us. So I want to take those reprints, if it's something that's right for our journal. So that's sort of just responding to some of the things that were said. So the Ekphrastic Review is a journal that is very specific. It is work that responds to visual art. So the word ekphrastic It's a very old literary genre that once upon a time meant to describe in a literary way a work of art. And the Ekphrastic Review has kind of stretched this definition since we opened in 2015, that it's more engagement with art. We don't necessarily have to describe it because today we have easy access to imagery. When the forum started, it was about people who wouldn't see the art, and so that you could kind of share it with them. But now we have postcards, we have Instagram, we have books, coffee table books with beautiful images. And so the response to art could hypothetically maybe have nothing to do with that art or artist, in the sense that you don't have to say, you know, there's a cypress tree blowing in the wind and the brushstrokes are this thick or whatever. Like maybe that Starry Night happens to remind you of, you know, a memory when your neighbor said something intriguing on this kind of dark walk and the trees reminded you of that, or you just make something up. But we do publish a lot that are about the art, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, so it has to engage with visual art in some way. And so you would send in the painting or a link to it or sculpture, and so on. And maybe you concocted a narrative for that piece. You know, maybe it's people sitting in a coffee shop in the painting, and you have brought them to life in some way. And so it's addictive to do this, even if you are not, you know, someone who is just naturally, you're at the art museum and you didn't think about this already. Once you start, you can't stop. There's no turning back. You just write things that you aren't expecting. And it's wonderful. And we want those unexpected things at the review. So that's what we look for, is new takes, new interpretations of the work, seeing something, showing me something I haven't seen. We're less likely to take another Van Gogh poem, although we still publish lots, but you know, that we would be inundated with the sort of most famous artists. Respond to someone in your community, respond to a woman artist in the 1700s that people haven't seen as much of, and so on. And just be yourself and your best crafted self. I don't want, you know, work that's trying to maybe emulate some kind of trend or some, you know, award-winning style. I always say that the only reason to write poetry or fiction is that it's your voice, because there's enough work out there. If I'm not hearing from you, I don't see a lot of point for, you know, just like we don't take AI poetry. It's kind of the same thing. If people feel they have to write in someone else's voice, or some magazines might have a kind of editorial tone, we don't have that. We want a real range of things. So I'm sorry, I'm just going on and on. I tend to do that. Okay, how do you pick a theme? We don't really have themes except in contests. We'll occasionally have a theme like, you know, cats in art or blue art, women artists, this type of thing. But you can come at it from any angle. So someone submitting to us would, you know, choose whatever artwork they responded to, and just send in that artwork or a link to it and their piece. And okay, so we take any kind of writing. We're very poetry heavy. That's just the way it naturally evolved. And we love poetry. We would love more short fiction, flash fiction, microfiction. We get it, 5% might be other than poetry, but we're interested in anything else really. Nonfiction, personal essay, memoir, you know, could be anything. I don't have any limitations at all on what kind of writing. And even length, we're quite open. We have a strong preference for 1,000 words and under in both stories and poetry, because we're on the internet and people tend to read on their laptop or phones, and we want them to read the whole thing. But we have published things that are quite long, and we'll consider them as well. Okay, what should writers avoid when submitting their work? So I guess we've covered a little bit about that. Like, I really want your voice. One thing you don't need to do is have a long list of the publications that you appeared in. Sometimes we get a 500-word biography that says, you know, a list of 402 journals. Most of the writers who send us work have a long list, and that's not going to sway us one way or another. So put, you know, a couple in, but tell something about yourself in the biography, because we're reading a lot of submissions, and again, we want to get to know a bit about you, something interesting, maybe what other kind of work you do, what things you're passionate about. So yeah, don't feel like you have to. Maybe you've had one publication, and that's okay. You can say upfront to editors that, you know, I had my first poem published this spring, and I'm really excited about more. Very few editors will, you know, crumple it up and say, oh, sorry, then at that point. They'll be very excited that you're burgeoning path. So, you know, don't worry that you have to somehow make up a big CV. Every writer has a full life, and you know, you could say something along the line, you know, I work as a nurse, and so I observe people all day who are suffering, and I started to write these poems about faith because of what I saw. That now I'm interested. I want to read the poems, right? Or, you know, if you however your life leads you, this is a more interesting part of the biography than dry credentials, let's say. Okay, let me consult my notes here, because there are a few things I wanted to mention. So I hate Excel and I can't figure it out. So you can, if you are intimidated by keeping track in an Excel document, if you're like me and can't really understand the charts and how some tech things work, you know, you can keep track just in a simple list on a Word document, because you can do a search in Word for each document. So if you need to look up, did I submit my poem, you know, poem XY, you can look that up and you'll see. So maybe it's not ideal, but it's functional to just keep it simple, keep a list, the, you know, name of the journal, date you sent it, and which ones. And then you can refer to that through the search function. So if anyone feels, oh, I'm just not sure how to make a chart, but you do have to keep track. Whatever system you have, that it has to work for you. You know, some people still write it in a notebook. And if you are patient and can go in and read through that and keep it faithfully, go for it, you know, whatever system works for you. But the reason you have to keep track is because if you have a poem published and then you need to withdraw the other 3 places that are reading it, that's just a goodwill, because otherwise journal XY next year will write and say we'd like that, and you're like, oh, I forget where, but it was published. So you do have to keep track, but you can build the system that works for you. And a lot of people just use a simple list in Word. Just a note about following the guidelines. Every journal has the guideline page. It's a pain in the butt because they're all different and it takes time. And so that's what I'm saying again, is maybe spending more time on the journals that you would like to appear. And when you invest that time, you'll be more thorough about it, because they are very important. You know, so for example, I have a second journal. It's called the Mackinac. It's a journal of prose poetry. So we're a bit unusual in that once a week we publish a handful of poems by one writer, up to 10. And so we don't receive single poem submissions. We don't run that. It is always a multiple batch. And so many times we get a single poem and I might love it, but that's not our format. So those details are just kind of time wasters for you. If you're like, oh, I wrote this great poem, I'm going to send it to the Mackinac. I'm not going to probably write back and say, you know, can you submit another 7 for us to choose from? You know, it's not going to happen, generally speaking. So those details, it's annoying to look up, okay, they want to see 3, they like this form of poetry, but it's really important. So that said, you know, if you make a small error, most of us are pretty easygoing and realize how much work goes into all this. And so, you know, don't worry too much about it if you made a mistake. You could even write back and say, oh, I'm so sorry, I sent you 8 poems and you asked for 5. And they're probably going to say, don't worry about it, right? Okay. Another submission place that you can use is called Chill Subs. This is a really great resource as well. I really like it. You can keyword search there. They have a function where you put in flash fiction or the word length or, you know, CNF or whatever, and it will come up with a list of journals that are open now. So that's a good resource. And I hope I covered everything that was asked of me, but if anyone has questions.
Yeah, Lorette, Lane has asked about the permission to publish images associated with the writing. And I know that's an important part for you.
Okay, so the permission is for the art in general. You could think of it like this. It's my problem and not yours, in that if I want the poem, I will do what I need to in order to, you know, find the permission. And sometimes we don't get permission. And, you know, that's horrible because I love to see the work with your work. It's rare. Most of the time we do. But if you can help me or any other Ekphrastic editor, so for example, if the artist is someone you work with at WiVLA and you call them up and say, I wrote this poem, you know, would it be okay? We don't have fancy contracts. It's kind of informal. If the artist sends an email, that helps us a lot. So thank you for that. But, you know, maybe you don't know that artist personally. And certainly if it's someone who's been deceased for 400 years, you don't know them personally. but most people from the past are in the public domain. So it's living or recent artists that are more difficult. But most of the time, artists are happy to appear, not all the time. Again, we've had some declines. And we've had situations where someone was like, sure, but it will be $800 for, yeah, okay, not so much. So if you can help with the permission, that artist's email address or something like that, that would be wonderful. But ultimately, we worry about it ultimately.
If I may say one thing, because I sometimes help Lorette with submissions, since I'm one of her assistant editors. If you have given no link and not the right name of the painting, because I love your poem, I have spent hours and hours trying to find it. and part of it is the fun of the search, but sometimes I come up totally empty because there's just no way. And I might spend 2 or 3 hours looking for some kind of link to that painting. So, and then I'll let Lorette know that I like the poem. I can't find anything. And honestly, sometimes she must have a magic wand, because sometimes she will find what I haven't been able to. So, but it's so helpful if you do give a link to the art, because that way I can read 10 more submissions. And the submissions do add up. So.
Well, thank you, Sandi. It's not just helpful, but it is required in the guidelines, or at least the title information and, some kind of way for us to see what you're writing from. Right. So Sandi is very generous to spend that time. I might write back and say, could you please send a copy of this artwork so we can see it if you forget. I wouldn't delete the submission for that omission, but it's in the guidelines to include. Jerry.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on chill subs, as Lorette brought it up. I discovered it by accident, but I like it because it actually ranks the journals. It has 5 rankings: top notch, send your best, the little kind of things. It's like, essentially I read it as a top one. Don't bother, Jerry. But the other ones I can think about whether I want to add it. And then it also gives the description of the journal and says how many readers the journal has. And that's kind of helpful too. I don't know, I don't always use that, but it's nice to know that there are more than 100 people who read this journal. You don't have to have Paris Review that's 30,000, it's somewhere kind of in the middle. So I find chill subs kind of a new thing that's very helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, I like it too.
Thank you, Lorette. I appreciate you sharing all that with us.
Thank you
Are there
so
any
much.
questions out there for any of the panel members from the group?
So much great information. My mind's kind of like, thank you all.
Oh, I forgot to mention something, but I put it in the chat. And that is, for those of you who like to perform your work, Hot Poets Equinox, whenever that is published, Kelly always sets up a really fun public reading. And it's usually at a place that has, beverages and food. And it's really great fun. So yeah, so they are open. The topic is wide open. And I just interpret that a lot of ways. You know, it's not like somebody had said, well, I think that's wide open spaces. And I said, I think it can be like having a wide open mind, or yeah, it can mean a lot of things. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. So that's open until I think August.
August
I think
5th.
so.
August 5th.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
August 5th.
Thank you, Margo.
I also wanted to share, it can take a lot of time to submit. And sometimes we just have to stay persistent and continue to do it, but don't get overwhelmed by it. If you need to step back, step back. Take your time with it and just adjust. Don't get discouraged. But I can't remember who said it during the discussion, but why are you publishing? What is your purpose? And if, whatever that takes to achieve your purpose, do it with steady, consistent steps, whatever works for you, and it will happen.
That's a great point, Kathi, because I used to think that having poems in very prestigious print journals was what I was seeking. And then I realized that my whole purpose of writing is, first of all, is for myself, but then I want to share with more people. So with all these beautiful online journals that you all talked about, and you have it's to me, it's like I want to have my work where more people would read it and they would get inspired to write. The idea of art is to share and make this world more beautiful. That's it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you are one of those rare people that I've never seen someone who started publishing in 2019, whatever, and you have had so many successes. I give you a big bravo, but I'm one of those who sits on my poems forever before I send them out. And I have lots of good friends who always tell me, "Well, should I get your work out?" Even my teachers will
Yeah.
say that. And so you're really inspiring us all a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Good.
I think Varsha, I think too, to me, the publication is good, but it's the doing, it's the creating.
Yes.
That moment in time when you are creating whatever it is, a piece of art, a poem, a short story, an essay, if you don't love the doing,
yes,
then why?
No, I yes.
Yeah, putting it out there and having other people give you feedback is wonderful.
Yeah.
But if I've met people who've said to me, "Oh, I just hate writing, but I've got to get published," and I don't even know how to respond to that, because to me, there's the moment that you have a draft of something, I just love to have something I can work on to revise. It's like maybe as a painter putting that first brush stroke on the canvas. I don't know.
No, I totally 100% agree with you, Sandi, because to me, if you say it in a cliched way, it's the journey. When I see my first draft and it looks great, and then I sometimes butcher it by revising it 100 times, but that's altogether different matter. But having something that you created itself is a joy, and I would not place it in the category of did I get published. Like give you a case in point. I was just a quick one. And before I was going to leave for an international trip on January 1st or 2nd. And this one diaspora group was working on sending some work to Academy of American Poets. And I said, what? Would they ever publish mine? And I had this Abecedarian, and I'm not kidding. I put off my packing till late morning, but I said I have to get it out December 30th, whatever. That was like when I sent the button, and I said I had no clue it would get accepted. But that was not the it's not the end that you're looking for. It's what you're creating and its possibilities. So anyway, thank you for letting me speak.
Lane, did you have a comment?
I want to just follow up with something that was put in the chat about being persistent is what people have been saying. And I have had pieces that I've submitted that were not accepted and the feedback was not necessarily very positive. And I turned around and I found a better fit for that piece of work and they loved it and they took it. So don't hesitate to keep working on your piece and to keep finding the right place for it, because sometimes it's just one or two people's opinions and they don't like it here, but over here they love it. So keep that in mind.
And one thing I would say, and this comes from my experience as a performer, as a singer, when you get a comment the first time, okay, maybe. You get it 2 times, oh, maybe. You get it 3 times, okay, I need to pay attention because this is something that more than one person is saying. So you never know. You don't know what else came in that day. You don't know what the editor had for lunch. You don't know how they're feeling. It's anything could play into it's so subjective, and you have to really try to separate yourself from your piece, and it's hard. It's hard. I know, because I go out to submit things and you get that bump in your throat. You're like, well, they didn't like it. Yeah. It's not usually that. It's not usually that they didn't like it. It's that it just didn't fit this time.
I have another question or comment, and that is rejection letters, the little notes that come back with the rejection. And I can parse them. So some seem to say, get lost, wishing you luck, go away. And others say, please feel free to submit again. Or others say, don't forget us, we'd like to hear more from you. Those are rare. But I wonder, am I reading too much into the comments that come back? I rarely get a comment about the work. It's yes, we can take it, or no, we can't. But I don't want to read too much when they say try us again. On the other hand, I don't want to read too much when I'm reading it as we don't like your stuff, don't bother to come here again. It'll say something like good luck in placing your piece. Bye.
This is a really unfortunate thing.
The editors could comment on that.
Yeah, this is a really unfortunate thing that I see. And I would say I always try to give a lot of feedback as much as I can. And the more feedback I give, the more I liked it. So even if I don't take it. Now, I was on a panel a while, but actually I wasn't on a panel. I was listening to a panel and I heard someone I respect a lot say, oh, I try to say as little as possible. And it's just best if I don't give people feedback. And I was like, what, really? I mean, how do we make each other better? How do we show each other our little pocket of knowledge if we don't comment and we don't talk to each other about things? So, yeah, it's something that a lot of editors aren't willing to do. And it's really unfortunate. I really pride myself on it. Takes me forever to do acceptances and rejections because I take time with them. And so I run really late and I'm always apologetic about, yeah, I'm 2 weeks late on letting you know if you got in, but it's because I had these rejections. I try to do the rejections first and I try to always say something positive and why. I want you to know why I rejected it, because I don't want you to be going, well, did I write something that isn't good? And most of the time it's not that. There are occasionally things that I'm like, and I try to find a nice way to say that, but that's, yeah. And sometimes there are things that come in that I don't comment on. Usually that's something that comes in and it's rude or misogynistic. I had a play come in that was a gentleman. The entire play was based on his private part, and I was like, I don't want to read this. But I just sent a very nice thank you. I didn't accept it. Thank you. So, and I didn't say please submit again, which I was like, because I was like, I don't really want to read anymore from that source. But so I think that you you have to find the people that you want to work with who will tell you something valuable. Find editors that will give you what you're looking for, that will give you feedback. And part of that is, you know, sometimes I was training, I had an intern for 3 weeks, and I had a young woman, and she was like really pro going at things, and she'd watched what I was doing, and she wrote back and gave this person some feedback, and the person was very rude back and said, you know, how dare you criticize a person's work without asking them if you can first. And I was like, you submitted to a journal, you know that we're going to read it and tell you. It's like, so there's a little of that going on too. So sometimes that's why editors are shy, is because they've been bitten by somebody who is a little rude. She was my intern, and she had a day where she was kind of crying a bit and everything. I said, important lesson, you're not in the wrong, always be nice, but you didn't say anything rude. Some folks are like that, and that's okay. We know that person had also submitted a couple of other things and got them denied because they had been rude. So yeah, it's tricky on feedback. The general consensus is to avoid it, and I buck that myself.
I would like to just quickly say that the percentage of pieces that we take is very low, even though we publish a lot. We publish every day. And so I hate sending declines. I don't care for it because often it's work that I think is very valuable. But there's no room at the end, and I have to make a choice between, you know, let's say 5 out of 100 pieces, and it's hard, and we get a lot. So don't take it to heart. Really work on your craft and be the best writer that you can be. But it's very often other things. Maybe we just published some haikus, and so we decided to go with the fiction, right? So yeah, that's it really. It's a small percentage, and so don't be dejected. Just send it again somewhere else and try us again later.
Thank you everyone for the absolutely wonderful discussion. This has been a real delight to hear from everyone, both submitters and editors. So thank you so much for your participation and all the questions. I'll turn it over to Brooke to take us home.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Took the words right out of my mouth, Denise, because I am so inspired and so grateful for every one of the insights and perspectives, including the questions that were asked. I just think this was a very powerful meeting, and I can't wait to try submitting again. So yeah, you've made it really clear about purpose, about process, including processing rejections and processing ongoing revisions and submissions. I just think there was just so much value here, and I'm grateful for everybody's presence. So thanks, and stay tuned to WiVLA's calendar. Come join us for our opening on Thursday. Yeah, just let's keep on meeting and supporting this mission. Thanks.
Thanks everyone.
Bye everybody.
That's great.